Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where today we have another Kaiser to take a look at, but this is not your typical budget-based Kaiser. Kaiser is dipping back into the realm of more premium builds and has brought this guy out within the past, I want to say a week or two ago was when it first dropped. What we have here is the Kaiser Clairvoyant. Now, before I go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. Now, let's take a look at some overall specs on this premium Kaiser right here. We have an overall length coming in at 8.46 inches, a blade length coming in at 3.75 inches. Blade thickness of this guy is 120 thousandths with a blade width of just over 1 inch at 1.01 inches. We have a blade material of S35VN. You still love to see it. It's not the newest and latest and greatest and most super steel out there, but you know what? It's still one of the best EDC steels you can get and a fantastic steel to make this blade out of. We have a sheep's foot blade style with a flat grind, a handle length coming in at 4.72 inches, a handle thickness at 520 thousandths, and a handle material of carbon fiber with titanium. And we have a user of a right hand only tip up carry and a weight, which is a pretty nice weight for this knife considering how big it is, and you'll see that in some size comparisons. A weight of 3.9 ounces. So for what you have here in lengths for a, almost 8.5 inch knife, it really is very well balanced and feels good in hand. Now this is designed by Paul Munko of Munko Knives, and we have a price coming in at $168 for this guy. So, $168. You're getting up there. It's not like super premium price, but you are paying for the carbon fiber. You're paying for the titanium, and of course, you're paying for that S35VN. And of course, Mr. Munko needs a cut for this fantastic design here. And let's take a look at some size comparisons and see just what we have. Now, there's a couple knives I have to put up next to it that aren't really straight size comparisons, but this is another Paul Munko design through Kaiser. This is the Kaiser Comet, and it's another Kaiser that I feel it's pretty underrated. Excellent flipping action. I got a full review of it up on the channel. You guys can go check that out. But as you can see, kind of just a little similar design language. And then this guy right here, this is the Kaiser Guru. And I definitely see some similarities in blade shape there. When I saw this blade, I kind of thought of a longer Guru blade, which I thought was worth at least putting out there because I really do like the Guru as well. So those are just for random size comparisons. But if you really want to get into size and length, you got to go pretty big because this is not a small knife. And the two Kaisers I have that probably measure up best with this is going to be the Kaiser Towser K, as well as even the Kaiser Begleiter XL is not out of the realm of comparison here. Definitely a bigger knife, but not by as much as you might think. And I think those two right there will do it for most people's size comparison needs. Definitely closer to the Towser K in terms of length, but a little closer, I think, to the Begleiter XL in terms of handle thickness and width and all that good stuff. Now let's get into just this knife. But actually, you know what? Before we dive into this blade, let's talk about this name, because that was another thing that I really liked about this knife was the actual name of it, the Clairvoyant. That's just a really good name for a knife, especially nowadays when there's numbers and names and everything under the sun to call a knife. The Kaiser Clairvoyant, that has a ring. So Clairvoyant is a person who claims to have a supernatural ability to perceive events in the future or beyond normal sensory contact. So kind of like a superpower, just a really cool name. And I thought the name fit the knife very well too. Kind of has that different little bit of a out there, almost like a maybe not fantasy, but kind of flirting with the fantasy type of appearance. I don't know. There are a lot of very interesting lines in the handle and the nice long blade. I like the name of it. I think the name fits the knife really well. That has nothing to do with the performance or any of the other good things about the knife, but it was worth throwing out there because there's not a lot of times I hear a knife name and I'm like, oh, I really like that name. And I really like this knife name. So there you go. Now let's talk about this blade. What we have here is, I guess it is a sheep's foot blade. As you can see, I really kind of I put some work on this blade. I really did. I carried it a lot. I like this knife a lot. So, you know, it got some good pocket time over the past week. What this blade is good for is really just about anything EDC. It's not the sliciest knife in the world, but it's plenty slicey enough for any type of regular EDC needs. I ran this through a lot of cardboard, kind of a lot of rough cardboard too. Broke through a lot of boxes, not only at home, but at work, and just kind of ran through the paces, and it held up very well. I really like the tip up here. It's a nice combination of robustness and sturdiness and sliciness. Not a very acute tip, so it's going to put in good work. And it's kind of like a modified sheep's foot almost. It's so long, I kind of struggle to call it a sheep's foot, but it definitely is. But yeah, it's just a very interesting blade shape. And in terms of the edge, behind the edge thickness on this, we're coming in around 19 thousandths, depending where you measure along the edge. So plenty good to go there. A flat grind that's high enough with the typical 120 thousandths thick blade stock. It's a good blade. It's a good blade. Not a laser beam, not a thick chunker. It's just a really good EDC blade. And you have a lot of sharpened edge. 3.75 inches worth of sharpened edge, maybe a hair less, because I'm assuming the blade length is probably considering it from the top to from the actual base of the handle up to the top of the blade. So maybe we're looking at closer to 3.65-ish inches of sharpened length, or 3.6, but you still have a lot of sharpened blade to work with, which is always a good thing. Everything else about this blade is kind of just standard Kaiser, nothing too impressive, but there is one thing I want to point out here, and it's not really just this knife, it's what I'm seeing on a lot of new Kaisers, and I really wish it would stop. I hope this doesn't become a thing. Because what you have here is the knife name, and like I said, this is one of my favorite knife names I've heard in quite a while. It's a great name. But I don't really like the name that big and wide and long on the blade. I really like what Kaiser used to do with, like, for example, the Towser K or even the Guru. You have the name there, but it's kind of more tucked up along the knife. I really, really strongly prefer that. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. I think you guys all know. I like minimal blade branding. I like all the information that you need to have with the knife, the blade steel, the name, even like the maker's mark. I don't have any problem with the maker's mark because I like seeing the maker's mark on there. But the name I really wish the name would come down here, and I kind of wish, I'm assuming this is their part number, is my guess, probably their item number for inventory purposes or whatnot. I wish that could really hide that. Maybe put that inside or on the inside of the handle or something to where it's not on the blade. That would be nice to put it up there, but just find a way to maybe make it not quite right along the top of the blade like that. And really, this one isn't quite as bad. I've seen a couple other ones where the font's even bigger and it takes up even a little more. It's a little more noticeable on the blade. I really wish that would stop. That is one thing I would like to put a quick stop to and go back to what they were doing. But overall, it is just a very good blade with a nice tip, good jimping, good thumb studs, good to go in the rest of the blade category. And when you get into the handle, that's where things get, in my opinion, I think they get even a little better here, because I really like how this handle works with my hand. Now, the only thing about this handle that maybe I would like to see changed, I mean, obviously they're not going to change anything at this point, but the only thing that would make it better for me would be maybe just a hair more thickness on the inside here. Maybe if there wasn't so much of a curve in there, maybe just a little, but it still feels pretty darn good as is. Now, if you have really big hands or thick fingers, primarily thick fingers, you may run into a point up here to where this may not feel the best on your hand, because it's, like I said, it fits about perfect in my hand, but I don't necessarily have thick fingers. I kind of have bigger hands, but I don't necessarily consider my fingers to be thick. I think they're pretty average from a proportional standpoint of the size of my overall hand, but people with those big, thicker fingers may find their fingers running in and feeling a little more of this point here, which isn't ideal. But I think majority of people would really enjoy the ergos on this. I like how the handle curves down. Kind of reminds me of a Sinkovich design with ZT. It feels really good. Really do like it. Like the place for your index finger to rest. Really like that highlight here of the carbon fiber around the pivot collar. Really like that a whole lot. And even the back spacer here has some nice detail with the Munko knives branding there. I think that looks really good. It's a nice subtle, little subtle touch to where it's not anything that really stands out and is too loud, but you see it when you're really looking around the knife, and I like that. It gives it a nice touch. You got your hidden backspacer here, which is really, or your hidden lanyard post for your lanyards. If you're a lanyard person, you can get a lanyard on there, and I really like this clip. It's simple, it's milled, it's basic, but it gives you a nice point to grab onto. Good place to put your fingers when you're kicking the blade out. Makes a lot of just the handling, whoop, got the board there. A lot of the handling of the knife in general easier when you have that nice sturdy base or post of a clip to hold on to. So really good stuff going on there. One thing about the handle that isn't the best is this carbon fiber. It's it has more of like that textured feel to it, and it's definitely a shred carbon fiber. And I see this problem more often with shred carbon fiber, and this actually isn't nearly as bad as what I've seen in the past from other manufacturers, other brands, other knives. This actually has more of just a texturized feel, and from a distance, it really doesn't look that bad at all. But when you get close up to it, you can see where the carbon fiber, it's almost like press board or something, to where it's been pressed together. Not quite as smooth as what you see on some other like fat carbon pieces, but again, this is not fat carbon, so don't want to get anyone confused there. This is just general shred carbon fiber, which is pretty good. You know, I've had other knives before that I didn't have a big problem with it on, but it would be nice to have that little extra bit of smoothness. But again, you don't have any real pitted flaws, like you don't have any chunks missing. It's still relatively smooth finish on there, and it does actually have a little grip. It has a little more grip than most carbon fiber, so that's kind of a good thing. But you don't really have any flaws that stick out that make you think like, oh gosh, I got a bad one, or I got a lemon, or I got a defective one. You didn't, definitely nothing that bad, but it is worth noticing. I think anyone who handles a lot of knives is probably gonna notice that. But overall, very nice design on the handle, nice little pops of detail in the pivot collar and on the back spacer, and of course the clip is milled very nice, and on top of all that, very nice solid ergos on this guy right here. And the button, of course, the button is actually it's smooth, and I really like the button. It's a nice solid button. You don't have to push it down too deep. It's dialed in very well in terms of a detent standpoint, which that also plays into the action, but it also plays into just how much you enjoy the button. I mean, you don't want to have to press the button all the way down to where it's like flush with the handle, because that can kind of it can make the action kind of touchy, or a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just too touchy to where you have to develop too much of a feel for it. I've had that problem in the past on some other knives, but in terms of action on this guy, it really is a very, very nice action. I do prefer just the regular thumb stud on this. It's a very nice thumb stud knife, and like I said, that detent for a blade this big and just how much steel you're flicking out, the detent on this button lock is really, really good. One thing you will notice with bigger knives that are button locks, the detents can be not as firm, not as solid as this one. This has a very nice distinguished detent, not too hard, it's not too soft. You're not going to shake this blade out, not for a second. It is nice and secure in there. And as you saw, you can middle finger flick it just fine. And of course, with just the button, you can flick it out just fine. So very nice and fidgety, as is most button locks. I think we've kind of gotten to the point to where a button lock in general, as long as the button is dialed in well and it has a good detent, but the button locks really take the cake from a fidget factor standpoint. And, you know, I've heard other people say this, and I'm going to address this elephant in the room. I hear people say, I'm done with the button lock craze. I'm tired of it. I'm over it. I'm ready to go back on. I was like, I don't look at button locks as a craze personally. The way I look at it is you did get a lot of them at once. So it really saturated the market all of a sudden with a lot of button locks, especially last year. But if a button lock gives you a good enough lockup for an EDC knife, and it holds everything together and it adds a good level of fidget factor, I don't look at it as a craze or a trend. I think button locks are here to stay. I really do. I have no reason to think they go away because I haven't had a lot of issues. I think manufacturers are finding out better ways to make them and certain angles and numbers they want to hit to ensure a secure lockup and a good fidget factor and all the enjoyable things that we want and need with a button lock. But I definitely don't think they're going away, and I hope they don't, because as much as I still enjoy a good frame lock and liner lock and compression lock and crossbar lock. I still love a good button lock just as much as the rest. It all depends on the quality of execution. That's what everything's going to come down to. And Kaiser did a really good job with this. Action's on point. Fit and finish is pretty good with the exception of, like I said, it's not the perfect carbon fiber, but it is still good. It still gives a good look. You get the carbon fiber, the glow and the reflection to where it looks like carbon fiber and the lightweight and toughness and all that good stuff. And the blade is good. It's slicey. It's a nice edge and overall an excellent design. So I'm really happy to see Kaiser going back to the premium builds to where you get the premium feel, you get the premium materials, but you don't always pay the premium price. $168 is a really good price for this knife because I get that you still have liners and all that stuff, but that's also why it's $168. If this knife didn't have liners and it was full milled pieces of titanium with, carbon fiber onlays, then we wouldn't be looking at $168. We'd probably be looking at $268. Kaiser is really good at using premium materials, making premium knives, but finding, solutions to keeping the price down while giving you those materials and not making you pay $250, $275 for a knife. So I like that. I don't have any problem with liners in this knife. That's totally fine with me. And everything else is executed well. You got excellent lockup on the button lock. You have fantastic blade centering that is on point. There's a lot of premium aspects to this knife with premium materials and feel, but you're not paying the $250+. So I think it's a really strong offering, and I really like the approach Kaiser takes to making the more premium models, even though they may not be like re-op premium in terms of the little details that other, some collectors and enthusiasts look at. It's a nice compromise, is what I'm getting at. It's a very nice compromise of price, materials, fit and finish, action. It's a very, very solid competitive package that I think is one of the reasons why so many people like the Kaiser premiums, because you get all the premium stuff without paying north of $250. So I kind of got cut off on a rabbit hole there, but I really wanted to make that clear because I really like what they're doing in terms of a premium standpoint and what they're doing with their knives over at Kaiser. I think they're killing it just as much as they are the budget versions. And that is the Kaiser Clairvoyant, guys. Let me know what you think of this. It's a fun, fidgety, excellent blade that carries well in the pocket. Solid ergos, good action. It's pretty much the complete deal. Not too bad at all for $168. This is a potential knife of the year contender in its price category, I gotta say, especially at that price category of $168. So let me know what you think, guys. Really hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.